It started like any other quiet morning. The sun rose over the cities, the fields, and the oceans, casting its golden light across Earth. People went about their routines, unaware that something extraordinary was happening above their heads. Far beyond the reach of normal vision, a fleet of ships appeared in orbit around the planet. They were not small or ordinary like satellites. They were enormous, perfectly structured, and entirely unlike anything humanity had ever built. They moved silently, not in the erratic paths of space debris, but in coordinated formations that seemed deliberate and intelligent. The news first broke through the international space agencies. Satellites picked up unusual readings. Observatories noted massive objects entering the solar system, yet they emitted no signals that humans could detect. Some experts initially thought it was a mistake. Others feared it might be a threat. Soon governments confirmed the unimaginable truth. These were alien vessels hovering silently above Earth, observing and doing nothing else. At first, people on Earth panicked. The internet exploded with speculation. Social media was full of debates, fears, and conspiracy theories. Some believed it was the end of humanity. Others thought it was a sign of hope, a chance to make contact with intelligent life. Scientists, however, were focused on understanding what these visitors wanted. The aliens did not communicate immediately. They made no gestures, sent no messages, and their presence was entirely silent. This silence, more than anything, unsettled the world. Humans are used to signs, signals, or warnings. But these visitors simply hovered, as if they were waiting for something or someone to act first. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had developed. Yet they remained still, like statues suspended in orbit. In the first few days, Earth tried to reach out. Radio signals, light pulses, and coded mathematical sequences were all sent toward the alien fleet. There were no replies. For scientists, the lack of response was both frustrating and fascinating. The alien silence suggested intelligence, planning, and a level of patience that humans rarely see. Some experts speculated that the aliens were studying Earth, trying to understand whether humans were worth contacting. Others worried that silence was a prelude to attack. Meanwhile, governments and space agencies worked in secrecy to assess Earth's defenses. They activated radar systems, readied satellites, and began reviewing classified space technology. Humanity was no longer just observing the skies. It had become part of the universe's audience. The question hanging over everyone was simple yet terrifying. Why were they here and what did they want? Amid the fear and speculation, something else happened. Scientists detected a strange signal emanating from the alien ships. It wasn't a language humans could understand. It was a complex pattern of pulses, frequencies, and harmonics that seemed structured. Experts from all over the world began decoding it. Mathematicians analyzed its sequences, linguists studied its patterns, and computer scientists developed models to predict its meaning. After hours of intensive work, a breakthrough occurred. The signal appeared to convey a message similar to a universal call for contact. It suggested intelligence, curiosity, and perhaps even a desire for communication. For the first time, humanity realized these visitors were not just passing through. They were attempting to connect, but in a way humans had to learn to interpret. Just as the world began preparing for a response, another discovery shocked everyone. Instruments detected a massive object moving in the outer solar system, hidden among the shadows of Jupiter's moons. It was a human-built vessel, classified and secret, known to only a few leaders and scientists. This ship was unlike anything public knowledge had ever seen. It was designed for deep space travel, equipped with advanced engines and capable of both exploration and defense. Its existence had been carefully hidden to prevent panic or interference. This warship, named Helios, had been humanity's insurance against the unknown. It was equipped with a controlled stellar fusion engine, a breakthrough technology that allowed it to harness the power of a small star. Its weapon systems were ready, but its purpose was more than just combat. It represented humanity's ingenuity, persistence, and courage. As Helios left the shadows of Jupiter, its massive engines flared against the darkness of space, creating a spectacle visible even from Earth. People everywhere watched live feeds of this secret warship emerging, and the sight was breathtaking. It was a reminder that humanity was capable of extraordinary feats, even if most of the world had never known about them. The alien fleet still in orbit reacted immediately. Their engines adjusted, their formations shifted, and instruments aboard. The Helios detected strange energy patterns. The aliens who had remained silent for so long now appeared to recognize something in the human vessel. They were observing, analyzing, and perhaps even understanding the presence of a technology so advanced that it surpassed many of their own capabilities. The world below held its breath. People who had feared invasion now wondered whether they were witnessing the first moment of interstellar respect. Scientists and engineers on Earth scrambled to interpret the readings. It was clear that the aliens' attention was fixed on the Helios. They made no move to attack, no sign of hostility. Instead, the silence that had caused so much anxiety seemed to carry awe and curiosity. In that moment, humans began to see a new side of the universe. It was vast, unpredictable, and full of mysteries, but it was also capable of wonder. The alien fleet was not just a threat. It was a reflection of humanity's place in a much larger cosmos. The fear that had gripped the planet slowly transformed into a mix of anticipation and hope. The Helios continued its approach, and the aliens did not retreat. Their ships formed an intricate pattern, almost as if preparing for a ritual of recognition. Humanity, for the first time, understood that this encounter was not about power, conquest, or domination. It was about presence, understanding, and the exchange of knowledge across civilizations separated by light years in time. People began to share their stories. Families watched the sky together. Teachers explained the significance of the event to children. Scientists gave interviews, describing what it meant for humanity to have reached this point in space and technology. Even in its silence, the alien fleet had sparked something profound, a global sense of unity. In the following hours, the world adjusted to the new reality. Air traffic and space operations continued with caution. Governments held emergency meetings, but no panic broke out. Humanity had learned that fear of the unknown could not define its actions. Instead, curiosity, courage, and intelligence guided its response. The silent alien fleet remained above, watching and waiting. The Helios advanced, not as a weapon of destruction, but as a symbol of human achievement. The encounter was unlike any war story or space mission in history. It was a quiet moment of first contact, where silence spoke louder than words and presence mattered more than signals. People around the world went to bed that night with a mixture of emotions: fear, awe, hope, and wonder. The sky, once familiar, had become a window into something greater. Humanity had stepped into the role of a participant in the larger universe, and the arrival of the alien fleet had shown that even in silence, there could be communication, understanding, and shared curiosity. And so the first day of humanity's encounter with the galactic visitors ended, not with explosions, not with threats, but with a quiet, profound realization. The universe was no longer a distant dream. It was real, present, and filled with possibilities beyond imagination. For the first time, the world saw that humans were not alone, and that the arrival of the alien fleet was not a threat, but the beginning of something far greater than fear. The day after the alien fleet appeared over Earth, scientists and leaders were still trying to understand what had happened. The world had watched silently as humanity's warship, the Helios, emerged from behind Jupiter. The alien ships had not attacked. Instead, they had shifted their formations and stayed perfectly still, as if they were trying to understand something new. That silence had left a deep impression on everyone. It was a silence full of meaning, almost like the universe itself had paused to observe. For days, Earth's top experts tried to decode the strange signals the alien fleet had sent. They were not words as humans understand them. They were pulses, rhythms, and patterns of energy that carried information far beyond simple sound. Teams of scientists, mathematicians, and engineers worked around the clock in secret labs and observatories attempting to translate what the visitors were trying to say. The effort was massive, but slowly, pieces of meaning began to appear. It became clear that the aliens were not hostile, at least not yet. The signals suggested intelligence and curiosity. They were a form of communication, even if it was unlike anything humans had seen before. One of the patterns resembled a universal signal for contact, a method to announce one's presence without threat. Another part of the signal seemed to indicate observation, an interest in Earth and its inhabitants. Humanity realized that these beings were capable of understanding, learning, and perhaps even emotion, but in ways humans could barely begin to grasp. Meanwhile, governments continued to watch the skies. The sudden appearance of the fleet had changed priorities everywhere. Military operations shifted from routine defense to constant monitoring. Diplomatic channels were activated in an unprecedented way. Leaders met in secret, not just to plan defense, but to discuss how humanity could respond without provoking fear or aggression. The world was standing at a crossroads. One wrong move could lead to disaster, but one right move could open the door to the greatest discovery in human history. Even with all this preparation, the most important question remained. Why were they here? The aliens had remained silent. For so long, then sent a signal that was complex, careful, and deliberate. It suggested intelligence, yes, but also a purpose beyond simple observation. Experts speculated endlessly. Some thought the visitors had come to test humanity, to see if Earth species could reach a level of development worthy of contact. Others suggested a more practical reason. Maybe they were searching for resources, or information, or even help. No one knew for certain. Then, something unusual happened. Deep space sensors picked up a faint energy signal coming from beyond the solar system. It was not directed at Earth, but it was incredibly precise and structured. Scientists traced it carefully, and to their surprise, the pattern seemed to be a kind of code, almost like a message waiting to be understood. Unlike the initial signals, this one appeared to originate from humanity's side of the solar system. The discovery raised many questions. Was it the aliens testing Earth's communication? Or was it something completely unexpected? Perhaps even from humans themselves? The Helios played a crucial role in this discovery. Hidden in the shadow of Jupiter's moons, the ship had been quietly monitoring the alien fleet and other space anomalies. Its advanced instruments picked up the faint signals that Earth-based satellites could not detect. Scientists on Earth realized the Helios was not only a defense vessel, but also humanity's first real step into interstellar observation. The ship was designed to explore, defend, and understand, all at the same time. And now, it was humanity's, linked to a much larger mystery. Back on Earth, people followed the story with awe and fear. News networks broadcasted live updates while social media exploded with theories, questions, and speculation. Families sat together staring at the night sky and wondering what it would be like to meet beings from another world. Teachers in classrooms explained the significance of the events in simple terms, and even young children began to ask questions about space, life, and humanity's place in the universe. For the first time, people everywhere felt connected by the same incredible event. Humanity was no longer alone. The scientists decoding the alien signals made a breakthrough. By comparing patterns in the signals with known mathematical constants and universal physical laws, they realized that the aliens were attempting to establish a foundation for communication. It was like a universal handshake, a method to say, "We are here, we want to understand, and we are capable of reason." This understanding did not come quickly. It took long hours of analysis, experimentation, and collaboration. But finally, Earth had a starting point, a way to begin talking to beings whose entire existence was beyond human imagination. Even as excitement grew, caution remained. Experts warned against misinterpreting the signals. One wrong response could be seen as a threat. International committees discussed how to respond without provoking fear or aggression. Governments agreed to a unified plan. Any communication would be sent only after careful analysis and approval by a global team of scientists and diplomats. The world had to act as one species, not divided nations, to ensure that the first contact was safe, respectful, and intelligent. Meanwhile, the alien fleet continued to hover silently over Earth. Every day they maintained the same pattern, neither approaching nor retreating. Their presence had a strange effect on human perception. People who studied them closely noticed changes in behavior and mood. Some described a feeling of calm, as if the fleet's silence carried not danger but contemplation. Others admitted feeling a mix of curiosity and awe that they had never experienced before. The alien visitors were teaching humanity something. Without speaking a single word, the power of observation, patience, and understanding. On the Helios, the crew began to notice something remarkable. The aliens were not only observing Earth but also studying the ship itself. Sensors recorded energy patterns, maneuvers, and even communication attempts from the vessel. It was as if the aliens were learning about human technology in real time. Engineers on Earth began analyzing these readings, realizing that the visitors were capable of a level of understanding and intelligence far beyond simple life forms. The fleet's silence was not emptiness, it was awareness. As days passed, humanity's efforts to respond to the signals became more focused. Teams developed a series of encoded pulses designed to convey peaceful intent, curiosity, and respect. Every detail mattered. Scientists tested sequences repeatedly, ensuring no misinterpretation could occur. Finally, the world prepared to send the first intentional message to the alien fleet. It was a small, simple communication, but it represented the largest collaborative effort in human history. Millions of people waited, holding their breath, as humanity took its first step toward speaking with another intelligent species. The moment arrived. The signal was transmitted from Earth's most powerful radio arrays, amplified by satellites to reach the fleet directly. Scientists monitored every second, scanning for response. For hours, nothing happened. The world wondered if the effort had failed, if the aliens had ignored humanity's message, or if communication was impossible. Then, slowly, the alien fleet shifted. Lights on the ships pulsed in rhythm with the signal sent from Earth. A response had come, not in words but in a form humans could now begin to interpret. Excitement swept across the planet. The silence that had caused fear transformed into fascination. Humanity was witnessing something extraordinary, a moment where two intelligent species attempted to understand each other across unimaginable distances. For the first time, it was clear that the aliens were not invaders, not conquerors, but beings capable of thought, reflection, and perhaps even emotion. Humanity had reached a point where curiosity, courage, and intelligence met the unknown. As night fell, people everywhere looked up at the sky and felt connected to something larger than themselves. Families discussed the alien fleet and what it might mean for the future. Students imagined the possibilities of interstellar friendship, learning, and shared knowledge. Scientists and engineers, exhausted but exhilarated, continued to study every detail of the signals and the fleet's behavior. The universe, once distant and unknowable, had begun to feel just a little closer. Even though the aliens had not spoken, in any way humans could immediately understand. Their silence had taught humanity an important lesson. Words were not always necessary. Presence, observation, and intention could communicate as clearly as speech. Humanity had taken the first steps into a new era, not one of conquest or fear, but of understanding and exploration. By the end of the second day, the world had adjusted to the reality of the alien fleet. People were no longer paralyzed by fear, though caution remained. They were inspired by the possibility of dialogue and the chance to learn from beings far older and more advanced than themselves. Humanity had faced the unknown and found curiosity where fear had once lived. The universe had become a place of wonder, patience, and hope. And so, the second day of humanity's encounter with the galactic visitors ended, not with answers, but with a promise. A promise that silence could speak volumes, that intelligence and curiosity could cross the vast distances of space, and that the first steps toward understanding had been taken. Humanity was no longer merely observers of the cosmos. It had become participer. The Helios had been hidden in the shadows of Jupiter's moons, quietly monitoring the alien fleet. Its engines had remained silent, its sensors active, and its crew alert. For weeks, they had been studying the visitors, gathering data and attempting to understand their intentions. But as the Helios began to move closer to the fleet, the atmosphere aboard the ship changed. There was a sense that something extraordinary was about to happen, something that no human had ever witnessed before. The Helios's engines ignited, propelling the massive warship forward through the dark expanse of space. Its glow illuminated the surrounding area, revealing the alien fleet in greater detail. Each vessel was enormous, shaped in ways that defied human engineering, and all moved in precise, coordinated formations. The crew watched in awe as the fleet subtly shifted its pattern, almost as if it recognized the presence of the Helios. Back on Earth, scientists and military officials monitored the Helios through long-range sensors. The moment had been anticipated for years, yet the reality of seeing a human-built vessel approach a completely unknown and possibly superior civilization was more intense than anyone had imagined. Experts noted every movement of the alien ships, analyzing energy readings, formations, and unusual patterns that might indicate intent. Every detail mattered because in space, even the smallest miscalculation could have massive consequences. Inside the Helios, the crew worked in unison, running simulations and monitoring alien signals. The ship's commander had instructed calm and patience, emphasizing that any sudden moves could provoke a misunderstanding. Even as the ship drew nearer, the crew felt a mix of fear and pride. They were humanity's first ambassadors, not soldiers. Their role was not to attack, but to represent Earth with intelligence, courage, and respect. As the Helios closed the distance, the alien fleet reacted in a way no one expected. Their engines dimmed, and their ships arranged themselves into a formation that resembled a protective circle. Sensors aboard the Helios detected energy patterns that suggested focus and attention. The aliens were not scanning or probing aggressively. They were observing, studying the human vessel. It was clear that they understood something unique about the ship, something they had never encountered before. The Helios's crew recorded everything. Engineers analyzed energy readings that defied known physics, while scientists studied signals that seemed almost musical in nature. The aliens communicated without words, using frequencies and vibrations that carried meaning across space. Slowly, the crew began to notice patterns. The alien fleet responded to the ship's movements, almost as if acknowledging that the Helios was not a threat, but a worthy presence. On Earth, the world watched the unfolding events through live transmissions. News networks broadcasted the approach of the Helios and the reactions of the alien fleet. People everywhere were captivated, staring at the sky in wonder and fear. Families discussed what might happen. Teachers explained the significance to students, and scientists provided commentary on the complexity of the encounter. Humanity was witnessing a moment of history, a meeting between two civilizations separated by unimaginable distances. The alien fleet's silence was no longer just unsettling, it became meaningful. Analysts realized that their lack of communication was deliberate. They were sending a message through observation, presence, and energy patterns. The Helios crew understood that this was a test, not of force, but of understanding. The aliens wanted to see how humans behaved when faced with the unknown, how they acted when confronted with power far beyond their own. As the Helios drew closer, the fleet shifted again. This time, the pattern formed something recognizable, a geometric shape that suggested intention and intelligence. Scientists aboard the ship compared it to universal mathematical constants and discovered a connection to harmony and balance. The aliens were expressing awareness of the Helios's existence and, possibly, admiration for the technology it represented. The crew of the Helios felt a mixture of excitement and humility. They were not invaders or conquerors. They were humans, showing their work, demonstrating what Earth had achieved. And in that demonstration, they were also learning. The alien fleet, in its silence, was teaching humanity patience, observation, and the importance of respect when encountering the unknown. Communication, however, was still limited. The alien fleet did not speak or transmit in a way humans could directly understand. Instead, it used signals that required interpretation, a combination of mathematics, energy patterns, and subtle environmental changes. The crew of the Helios began to document these signals meticulously, knowing that every observation could lead to breakthroughs in understanding interstellar intelligence. Back on Earth, the world continued to wait. People were anxious, but also fascinated. Scientists held press briefings, carefully explaining what was known and what remained a mystery. Educators incorporated the events into lessons about space, physics, and the importance of curiosity. The global reaction was one of cautious optimism. Humanity was beginning to realize that first contact did not have to mean conflict. It could also mean learning, discovery, and connection. On board the Helios, one of the most remarkable moments occurred when the alien fleet appeared to mimic the ship's energy signature. The vessels emitted pulses that reflected the pattern of the Helios's engines. It was as if the aliens were acknowledging the human vessel in a language that did not require words. Scientists on Earth immediately recognized the significance. The fleet had recognized not only the presence of the ship, but also its uniqueness and the intelligence behind its design. This recognition had a profound effect on the crew. Pride, excitement, and awe filled the control rooms. They realized that humanity had taken its first true step into the universe, not as conquerors, not as victims, but as intelligent participants in a larger cosmic story. The silence of the alien fleet had transformed into a dialogue of understanding, patience, and recognition. For the first time, the crew of the Helios felt a connection with beings that were truly alien. There was no shared language, no shared culture, but there was mutual awareness. Humanity's ingenuity had drawn attention, respect, and perhaps even curiosity from a species far older and more advanced than themselves. The implications were staggering. It suggested that intelligence, creativity, and courage could be recognized across vast distances of space, even without a shared language. The alien fleet's reaction was gradual but undeniable. The ships began to shift closer to the Helios, not in aggression but in alignment. Sensors detected energy signatures that suggested focus and concentration. The crew interpreted this as a willingness to engage, to observe, and possibly to share knowledge. The silence that had once been intimidating now carried meaning, hope, and anticipation. Meanwhile, Earth continued to monitor every moment. The obverse, images, and data transmitted from the Helios provided scientists, engineers, and the public with a glimpse of what had previously been unimaginable. People marveled at the sight of the alien fleet, its size, structure, and movement. The world slowly began to accept a new reality. Humanity was part of a universe that was far more complex, intelligent, and interconnected than ever imagined. As the Helios maneuvered within close proximity, the alien fleet maintained its pattern. It did not attack, it did not retreat. It seemed to acknowledge that humans were worthy of observation, capable of learning, and perhaps capable of partnership. The crew understood that this was a critical moment. Humanity's actions would determine how the rest of the encounter unfolded. Respect, caution, and intelligence were paramount. The first direct signals between the Helios and the alien fleet were sent through carefully controlled energy pulses. Scientists aboard the ship crafted sequences to demonstrate peaceful intent and curiosity. These signals were met with responses that reflected rhythm, harmony, and balance. While not a language, the interaction was a form of understanding. It was a dialogue without words, where observation and intention communicated more than speech ever could. For the first time, humans realized that the alien fleet's silence was not emptiness. It was presence, awareness, and intelligence. Humanity had taken a step into a dialogue that transcended language, culture, and distance. It was an encounter based on observation, respect, and curiosity. Every human on Earth watching the transmissions could feel the significance. This was not the start of war, but the beginning of understanding. By the end of the day, the crew of the Helios had gathered vast amounts of data. They had witnessed the alien fleet's intelligence, its awareness, and its recognition of humanity's technological achievements. They had begun to understand the meaning behind the silence, the significance of energy patterns, and the potential for a connection that was unlike anything humans had imagined. As night fell on Earth, people everywhere looked up at the sky. Fear had been replaced by awe. Curiosity had overcome panic. Humanity had entered a new era, one in which first contact was not defined by conflict, but by intelligence, observation, and the possibility of shared understanding. The universe had revealed a small part of its vastness, and humans had stepped forward to meet it with courage, respect, and hope. And so the third day of humanity's encounter with the galactic visitors ended with a profound realization. Silence could communicate, observatio. The Helios had been in close proximity to the alien fleet for hours, perhaps days, by the sense of intensity aboard the ship. The crew had seen enough to know that the visitors were intelligent, aware, and capable of understanding, but their intentions remained unclear. Every movement, every pulse of energy seemed to carry meaning, yet humans had only begun to interpret it. The aliens were silent, yet their silence spoke in ways the crew could feel, even if they could not yet fully understand. As the crew monitored the alien fleet, they noticed subtle changes. The energy readings from the ships were different from before. They were calmer, more deliberate, almost emotional in their pattern. It was as if the aliens were observing something deeper than the Helios's movements. They were observing humanity itself. Sensors picked up pulses that matched the rhythms of natural life on Earth. Heartbeats, waves, and vibrations that humans naturally emitted. The alien fleet seemed fascinated not just by technology, but by life itself. On Earth, the public watched, with a mixture of fear and excitement. News channels described the fleet's silent observation, scientists explained the energy readings, and citizens everywhere tried to imagine what it meant. Families looked at the night sky, students asked questions in classrooms, and leaders debated strategies and ethics. Humanity was witnessing a moment that could not be fully explained, a first contact that was as much emotional as it was scientific. The crew of the Helios realized that the alien fleet was learning, not just about the ship, but about humans. The energy signatures reflected curiosity, attention, and an awareness that bordered on empathy. One of the scientists aboard noted that the signals resembled emotional patterns seen in intelligent life forms, suggesting that the aliens could feel, or at least perceive, states similar to what humans experience as fear, wonder, or awe. This was a revelation. Humanity had assumed intelligence came with technology or logic, but here was a species that combined both with something humans could barely define. The Helios continued to send carefully coded pulses, showing peaceful intent and curiosity. Each sequence was designed to communicate respect, understanding, and a willingness to share knowledge. The aliens responded in kind, their energy pulses forming intricate patterns that reflected the Helios's signals. For the crew, it was like a conversation without words, a dialogue of awareness, intention, and understanding. Then came the moment that would change everything. Sensors aboard the Helios detected an unexpected signal from one of the alien ships. Unlike previous pulses, this one was complex, layered, and unmistakably emotional. The scientists on board worked quickly to analyze it. They realized that the fleet was expressing a form of distress, a signal that suggested loss, grief, and a search for something. The aliens had not come to invade or conquer. They had come searching, and they were silent because of sorrow, not arrogance. The revelation shocked the crew. For years, humanity had prepared for first contact with fear of attack or domination. But the aliens were not aggressive. They were vulnerable in a way humans could understand. They were searching for something lost, something critical, and humanity's Helios represented a solution. The ship's advanced technology, its ability to harness and control stellar energy, was something the aliens could no longer achieve. They were mute not because of hostility, but because they had encountered something remarkable, a human achievement that mirrored what they had once possessed. Back on Earth, the scientists decoding the data worked feverishly. As more patterns emerged, it became clear that the aliens' fleet had lost a vital part of their civilization. A cosmic catastrophe had destroyed much of their ability to survive. They had traveled for eons, seeking a species capable of restoring or reproducing the technology that they could no longer control. The discovery changed humanity's perspective. The fleet was not a threat. It was a mirror, reflecting what humans could achieve and perhaps a chance to help a civilization in need. The crew of the Helios began to understand their role in this cosmic encounter. They were not soldiers confronting an enemy. They were witnesses and representatives of humanity's ingenuity. Every movement, every transmission, every response mattered. Their behavior would shape the aliens' perception of humans and determine whether communication could continue peacefully. Patience, intelligence, and respect became more important than ever. The alien fleet reacted to this understanding. Their ships shifted closer, forming intricate patterns that suggested recognition and acknowledgement. The energy signals carried a new rhythm, one that reflected not fear or aggression, but wonder and appreciation. The Helios crew realized that the fleet was responding to humanity's presence with something similar to respect. The moment was profound. A species separated by light years and time had recognized humans as capable and intelligent. Scientists aboard the Helios began to transmit new sequences, designed not to assert power, but to demonstrate cooperation and curiosity. They sent data about Earth, energy patterns, and mathematical principles that could be universally understood. The alien fleet responded by adjusting its formations, creating harmonics that aligned with the signals. It was a dance of understanding, a silent communication that bridged an unimaginable gap. As this interaction continued, the crew made another astonishing observation. The aliens seemed to be imitating certain patterns from the Helios systems. Their energy pulses began to echo the sequences sent by humans, but in more complex ways. It was as if the fleet was learning, not just observing. The realization was thrilling. Humans and aliens were now engaged in a mutual exchange, learning from each other without a shared language, culture, or history. On Earth, excitement and hope grew. People watched the live feeds and marveled at the unfolding events. Teachers explained the significance in simple terms, families discussed what it meant for the future, and scientists predicted the possibilities of collaboration. Humanity began to see that first contact did not have to be terrifying. It could be a moment of wonder, discovery, and shared understanding. The alien fleet's silence, once intimidating, had become meaningful. The crew of the Helios understood that these beings were aware, intelligent, and capable of emotion. They were not here to test strength or provoke fear. They were here to recognize what humanity could do and to see if humans were worthy of understanding. The weight of that realization was immense. Humans had become participants in a cosmic story that was unfolding in real time. As the Helios continued its approach, the aliens made another shift. A single vessel separated slightly from the fleet and sent a series of intricate energy patterns directly to the ship. Scientists analyzed it and realized that it was not a signal of attack. It was a greeting, a recognition, and an invitation to deeper interaction. The implications were staggering. The aliens were attempting the first step in meaningful contact, and humans were ready to respond with intelligence and care. The crew of the Helios prepared their next transmission carefully. They sent sequences representing Earth's natural patterns, human achievements, and peaceful intentions. They even included encoded representations of life itself, heartbeat rhythms, ocean waves, and the movement of Earth's atmosphere. The alien vessel responded immediately, adjusting its energy patterns to align with the transmissions. The exchange was slow, deliberate, and breathtaking in its significance. For the first time, humans could sense that the aliens were not only observing technology, they were observing humanity. They seemed fascinated by life itself, by the ability of humans to create, adapt, and survive. The silence of the fleet was no longer a barrier. It was a form of dialogue, expressing wonder, curiosity, and an unspoken connection. Back on Earth, people were captivated. Social media and news networks covered every development. Citizens discussed what it meant to be recognized by a species so advanced. Schools included lessons on patience, observation, and the importance of curiosity. Humanity was learning a lesson beyond science, that intelligence, empathy, and respect were universal languages that could bridge unimaginable distances. The encounter continued, growing more intricate. The alien fleet adjusted formations, sent energy pulses, and mimicked patterns from the Helios. It was a silent symphony, an exchange of understanding that required observation, patience, and intuition. Humans were not just participants. They were learners, diplomats, and witnesses to the emotional depth of a civilization beyond their own. By the end of the fourth day, a new truth was clear. The aliens were searching for what they had lost, and humanity had something they could not achieve on their own. The Helios represented knowledge, innovation, and hope. The fleet's silence was no longer a source of fear, it was a bridge. And the interaction was a dialogue of awareness, respect, and mutual curiosity. Humanity had taken the first steps toward understanding a civilization far older and more advanced, and the implications were profound. As night fell across Earth, people gazed at the sky and marveled at what they were witnessing. The alien fleet hovered above, silent yet expressive, while the Helios maintained its careful approach. Humanity had learned that first contact did not have to be defined by fear, conflict, or misunderstanding. It could be defined by intelligence, patience, and the quiet power of observation. And so, the fourth day of humanity's encounter with the Galactic, the Helios continued to hover near the alien fleet, its crew studying every movement, every energy pulse, every subtle shift in formation. They had spent days observing and learning, and slowly, a clearer picture was emerging. The aliens were not here to attack, and they were not here out of curiosity alone. They were searching for something that they had lost long ago and could no longer recreate on their own. The scientists aboard the Helios worked tirelessly to decode the new signals from the fleet. Unlike the earlier messages, these were richer, more complex, and seemed to carry intention and meaning beyond simple observation. The signals suggested a need, something that could not be expressed in words but could be understood through patterns, harmonics, and energy pulses. As the crew studied the data, they realized that the aliens were reaching out to humanity for help. This realization changed everything. Humanity had prepared for a confrontation, for defense, for potential war. But now it became clear that the aliens were not seeking dominance or conflict. They were seeking aid. They had lost a crucial technology, one that controlled energy at a cosmic scale. For centuries, their civilization had relied on it, and when it failed, much of their ability to sustain life and civilization had been destroyed. Now they were silent not out of fear or hostility, but out of respect and recognition for humanity's unique ability to recreate what they had lost. On Earth, scientists worked to understand what this meant. Humanity's technology had advanced far enough to develop controlled stellar fusion, the ability to harness energy directly from stars. The Helios was the first human vessel to demonstrate this capability. It had become a symbol not just of human ingenuity, but of hope and potential. The alien fleet's silence was a reaction to this power. It was awe, reverence, and recognition all at once. The crew of the Helios felt a mixture of pride and responsibility. They were no longer just observers. They were part of a story that spanned light years and centuries. Humanity had become a participant in the survival and understanding of another species. Every move they made, every pulse they transmitted mattered. They were ambassadors, messengers, and witnesses to a moment of cosmic significance. The alien fleet adjusted its formation again. This time, one ship moved slightly closer, separating from the group in a deliberate and careful way. Sensors aboard, the Helios detected energy pulses that were intense yet controlled, patterns that suggested awareness and, surprisingly, gratitude. The crew understood that the fleet had recognized the Helios as the vessel capable of meeting their need, and that humans were now being invited into a silent partnership. Back on Earth, the news had not yet reached the public in full detail. Governments and scientists decided that the information must be carefully analyzed before widespread dissemination. The world had already seen the alien fleet and the human warship, but the deeper significance, the emotional and technological connection, was kept secret. Experts discussed the implications behind closed doors. Humanity was not only being observed, it was being trusted with something that could alter the balance of knowledge and power in the universe. The crew of the Helios continued to transmit signals designed to communicate peace, curiosity, and willingness to help. They sent sequences that represented Earth's natural rhythms, mathematical principles, and energy patterns from the ship itself. The alien vessel responded with harmonics that were richer and more complex than anything humans had detected before. It was as if the fleet was testing humanity, seeing how it would respond to a need that had no words, only patterns and purpose. As the interaction unfolded, the crew realized something extraordinary. The aliens were not asking for domination, alliance, or even recognition. They were seeking collaboration. Humanity had created something they could no longer achieve, and now, the opportunity to assist was a bridge between species. The realization brought a sense of awe and responsibility. Humans were capable not only of survival and creation, but also of extending understanding, knowledge, and hope across the cosmos. The alien fleet's responses became increasingly precise. One ship emitted a series of pulses that aligned perfectly with sequences transmitted from the Helios. Scientists aboard the vessel studied the patterns and discovered that the aliens were essentially teaching as well as learning. They were showing humans the kind of energy balance they had once maintained, hinting at the knowledge needed to restore the system. It was a silent exchange, a mentorship across species separated by light years. The emotional impact on the crew was profound. They realized that the fleet's silence, once intimidating, was now an expression of trust. The aliens were willing to reveal fragments of knowledge, but only to those they deemed capable of understanding. Humanity's ability to interpret, replicate, and expand upon this technology was being tested. The moment became not just a demonstration of human skill, but a moral responsibility. Could humans rise to meet a challenge that affected not just their planet, but the survival of another civilization? On Earth, preparations quietly began. Scientists and engineers started modeling how the Helios could safely share knowledge and technology. Every transmission was calculated to prevent misunderstanding or misuse. Diplomats, military officials, and global leaders worked together in unprecedented coordination. Humanity had to act as one species, because the consequences were not limited to Earth alone. What they did now could shape the relationship between two intelligent civilizations for generations to come. Meanwhile, the alien fleet made another subtle movement. Multiple ships formed a semicircle around the Helios, creating a protective barrier. Their energy readings indicated focus and concentration. The aliens were observing the human vessel as it would observe a delicate experiment, aware of its potential, cautious, yet hopeful. The Helios crew felt the weight of this trust. Every maneuver, every transmission, every decision mattered. They were not just representatives of a single nation, they were ambassadors of all humanity. The first step toward collaboration came when the Helios transmitted a sequence representing controlled stellar fusion. The pulse carried information about energy containment, regulation, and safe distribution. The alien vessel responded almost immediately, sending back a sequence that refined the information, adding complexity humans had not considered. It was a dialogue of technology, discovery, and respect. The crew realized that they were witnessing not just communication but mentorship, a sharing of knowledge across the stars. Humanity began to understand the implications. The aliens' civilization had lost its ability to maintain cosmic energy, systems, yet they had survived through ingenuity and patience. Humans now had the opportunity to help them regain this capability, not through domination, but through collaboration. The universe was showing that intelligence and empathy could cross unimaginable distances, and that cooperation was the greatest force in existence. As the hours passed, the Helios continued its careful work. Engineers simulated energy transfers, scientists decoded alien harmonics, and the crew transmitted information in precise, careful sequences. Each response from the fleet was analyzed, measured, and interpreted. Slowly, the humans realized that this was more than a technological exchange. It was a test of humanity's ability to act responsibly, to share knowledge without arrogance, and to respond with empathy. On Earth, the significance of these actions became apparent. Humanity had reached a point where its choices could influence not only their own survival, but the survival of another intelligent species. Discussions that had once seemed theoretical now had immediate consequences. Ethics, science, and diplomacy converged in ways that were unprecedented. People everywhere began to realize the responsibility that came with discovery, power, and knowledge. By the end of the 5th day, a new understanding had emerged. The alien fleet had revealed its vulnerability, its loss, and its need. Humanity had responded not with fear or aggression, but with careful observation, learning, and communication. The Helios had become more than a warship. It was a bridge between worlds, a symbol of intelligence, curiosity, and compassion. The silent exchange had transformed into a dialogue that was shaping the future of two civilizations. And so the 5th day of humanity's encounter with the galactic visitors ended with clarity. The aliens were not invaders. They were survivors, seeking aid. Humanity was not merely observers. It was capable of collaboration, mentorship, and moral responsibility. The universe had provided a test, and humans had begun to rise to meet it. The story was far from over, but for the first time, hope, understanding, and purpose had taken the place of fear and uncertainty. The Helios had spent days in close contact with the alien fleet. Every moment had been a lesson in patience, observation, and responsibility. Humanity had come a long way, from watching in fear, to understanding silence, to beginning a silent dialogue of knowledge and cooperation. Yet the story was far from over. The true test of trust and collaboration had only just begun. Inside the Helios, the crew prepared for the next phase of interaction. Engineers and scientists worked together to create sequences that would allow controlled energy transfers, safe, measured, and understandable by both species. The aliens, they realized, were not just curious observers. They were partners in a delicate experiment, one that required precision, intelligence, and patience. The ship's crew understood the weight of their task. Mistakes could be dangerous, but success could change the course of history for two civilizations. The alien fleet responded immediately. Ships adjusted their positions, aligning with the Helios in ways that reflected harmony and trust. The energy pulses emitted from their vessels grew stronger yet more balanced, suggesting awareness, concentration, and even anticipation. For the first time, it felt as though the fleet was actively participating, not merely observing. The humans and aliens were beginning to work together in a way that transcended language, culture, and even species. On Earth, people watched in amazement. Scientists broadcasted carefully selected information explaining that humans were engaging in a dialogue with beings from another world, not through words, but through energy, patterns, and understanding. Families gathered around screens, students asked endless questions, and even world leaders marveled at the cooperation occurring so far above. Humanity had moved beyond fear and panic. The universe had become a classroom, and the lesson was about patience, intelligence, and empathy. The first transfer of energy occurred under meticulous observation. The Helios transmitted a carefully calibrated pulse representing controlled stellar energy. The alien vessel responded by mirroring and refining the pulse, adjusting the frequency to match a system that humans could barely comprehend. The scientists aboard the Helios worked furiously, measuring, comparing, and adapting in real time. The exchange was like a dance, fluid yet precise, with each step requiring trust, focus, and respect. It was during this exchange that the crew felt something extraordinary. The energy pulses from the aliens carried a rhythm that was more than technical. It was emotional. The patterns reflected awe, relief, and perhaps gratitude. Humanity realized that the fleet was responding not just to technology, but to intention and understanding. The aliens had recognized that humans were capable of responsibility, intelligence, and empathy. For the first time, the silence that had once intimidated Earth had become a connection, a bridge between species. On Earth, scientists began to interpret the changes in the fleet's signals. The aliens were showing signs of relief. Their systems, once dormant and damaged, were stabilizing with the aid of the Helios. Humanity's technology was not just impressive, it was transformative. The aliens were learning from humans, but humans were also learning from the aliens. The interaction had become a true partnership, a collaboration that spanned light years and centuries of knowledge. The crew of the Helios worked tirelessly. Every adjustment to the energy sequences required careful thought. Every pulse transmitted needed to be precise. The aliens responded with subtle changes that demonstrated understanding, caution, and guidance. Humanity was learning that communication could happen in ways entirely different from spoken language. Observation, energy, and intent could speak louder than words. Then, something remarkable happened. One of the alien ships emitted a series of pulses that suggested recognition and acknowledgement. The rhythm and patterns aligned perfectly with sequences sent from the Helios. The scientists interpreted it as a form of gratitude, even a sense of partnership. It was a moment that would be remembered for generations. Humans had earned the trust of an advanced civilization. The alien fleet had accepted them not just as observers, but as collaborators, as equals in understanding and responsibility. The emotional impact on the crew was profound. Weeks of careful study, observation, and patience had led to this moment. Humanity had demonstrated that intelligence was not just measured by technology, but by empathy, patience, and the ability to understand another species' needs. The Helios had become more than a warship. It was a symbol of hope, collaboration, and the power of human ingenuity. Back on Earth, people felt the significance of the achievement. The alien fleet had not attacked, it had not dominated, and it had not imposed fear. Instead, it had recognized humanity's capability and trustworthiness. Across the globe, people experienced a mix of awe, relief, and inspiration. Humanity had shown that it could face the unknown with intelligence and respect, and the universe had responded in kind. The energy exchanges continued, growing more intricate and stable. The aliens were teaching humans about systems they had once mastered, and humans were demonstrating the ability to learn, adapt, and replicate safely. Every pulse carried knowledge. Every sequence refined understanding. It was the kind of collaboration that had never been seen in human history. A new era of discovery had begun, one that could change the way humanity approached science, technology, and life itself. During one particularly intense exchange, the alien fleet emitted a sequence that mirrored not only the Helios's energy, but also the natural rhythms of Earth itself: ocean waves, wind currents, and planetary rotation. The humans realized that the aliens were not only interested in technology, but in life itself. They were studying humans as a species, recognizing resilience, creativity, and intelligence. It was an acknowledgement that humanity's worth was measured not just by invention, but by character. The crew of the Helios understood the gravity of the moment. They were shaping the future of interstellar relations. Every choice, every calculation, every careful transmission mattered. They were building trust where once there had been silence, forging a connection that could endure for generations. Humanity had moved beyond fear, beyond suspicion, beyond doubt. The universe had revealed a lesson. Understanding and empathy were as powerful as technology, and intelligence was most valuable when paired with responsibility. On Earth, the news gradually filtered to the public in a controlled manner. People learned that the alien fleet had been seeking aid, that humanity had responded with wisdom and caution, and that the first real collaboration across species had begun. The revelation inspired hope, curiosity, and unity. Humanity had faced the unknown and had risen to meet it not with weapons or fear, but with intelligence, patience, and care. The alien fleet's behavior confirmed that the cooperation was working. Their ships stabilized, and energy readings indicated that systems that had been dormant or damaged for centuries were now functioning in alignment with the human technology. The Helios had achieved what no human or alien alone could: a bridge between civilizations, a flow of knowledge and energy that could sustain life and understanding across the stars. As the final sequences of energy exchange were completed, the aliens performed one last display. The fleet arranged itself into a formation that, to the human eye, resembled a gesture of respect and acknowledgement. The pulses of energy carried a sense of relief, gratitude, and even a hint of celebration. Humanity had succeeded not through dominance but through understanding, collaboration, and empathy. The crew of the Helios felt a profound sense of accomplishment. Weeks of uncertainty, observation, and careful experimentation had led to this moment. Humanity had faced the unknown and emerged not as conquerors but as partners. The alien fleet's trust was not merely a recognition of technology, but a recognition of the species that had built it, the humans themselves. On Earth, people celebrated quietly, but with immense pride. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, not as victims, not as invaders, but as intelligent participants capable of cooperation across unimaginable distances. Schools taught the story, scientists studied the principles, and families marveled at the possibilities. Humanity had learned that courage, patience, and intelligence could earn trust even among the stars. And so, the sixth day of humanity's encounter with the galactic visitors ended with triumph and understanding. The alien fleet was no longer silent in mystery. It had recognized humans as worthy collaborators capable of learning, teaching, and building bridges across the cosmos. The Helios had proven that humanity's greatest power was not its weapons or technology, but its capacity for intelligence, empathy, and responsibility. The universe had opened a door, and humanity had stepped through it. The silence of the aliens, once a source of fear, had become a dialogue of trust. The story of the Helios and the galactic visitors was not just about first contact. It was about the power of understanding, collaboration, and hope. Humans had learned that the universe was vast, challenging, and unpredictable, but that courage, respect, and intelligence could turn even the most mysterious encounters into opportunities for growth, connection, and discovery. The stars above Earth shone a little brighter that night. The alien fleet lingered, silent yet full of presence, while the Helios floated among them, a symbol of humanity's achievement and potential. For the first time, humans,